have things to do on this Friday, but first let me start with a tremendous sense of gratitude for everyone, all of you giving your time so last minute to jump on with us today. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. My name is Judy Ann Williams, for those of you that I don't know, and I have had the privilege of being a trustee for Save the Children for the last several years. And the reason I actually joined this board was because of the mission critical work they have literally built school by school, town by town for years in our beloved West Virginia. And thanks in large part to the relentless advocacy by Jen Garner and this incredible West Virginia team you'll meet today. They never give up, even on the hardest of days. So appreciative. I always say that West Virginia is the other great love of my life. Like many of you, and we were all just sharing, she has my heart. I proudly hail from Hurricane, but my family literally goes back for centuries to towns like Pax and Oak Hill and Fayetteville. So I'm sure we all have lots of touch points. And the community and my friends and family, and I spent my entire public education all the way through Shepherd, and always say that it built me and it still remains my North Star. And there is truly no place like home. And like you, I want to ensure every child in West Virginia has the same opportunities that I had to thrive. And I know we have the tools, the programs, the champions like you all to support West Virginia's most vulnerable children and help them reach their full potential. And also, like we say, we always find our people, which led Jen and I to the one and only John Chambers, who then introduced us to the Earth Angel Force for Good, that is Sarah Biller, who is also a Hurricane High alum. And she immediately jumped in with us like a week or two ago and has now helped us all find one another today. So with so much gratitude and appreciation, I will now turn it over to you, Sarah.
Judy Ann, thank you. And Jen, thank you as well. I just want to acknowledge it's no surprise that this gathering came together so quickly. My favorite bridesmaid is on the phone. I haven't seen her in a couple months, but Karen Lovich, I see your beautiful face. And they're wildly successful in her own right. And I think it just speaks volume about no matter where we go in the world, as West Virginians, when we're called to solve a complex problem, we want to do it. And we hop on and we say, let us hear what we can do to make the world better. As the daughter of a fourth grade school teacher who insisted that I was read to, I can't imagine a home without books and parents who have the energy and the time to support their children in ways that are meaningful. And in the absence of that, organizations and community step in. And so from the bottom of my heart, from all my dear friends, those of you I can't see on the phone because I'm on my own phone, thank you for listening, for opening your heart and your mind to the fact that we can do a lot of good together, as we always have. And so with that, I'll turn it back to the team, but thank you.
Well, I guess I'm up. Hello and good morning, and thank you all. It makes me so emotional to see all of you here this morning. That might be that I wrapped in the middle of the night and got up early because I was so excited. So just everything feels close to the surface. It's the holidays, and anyway, there's no place like home, and all of you represent that. And thank you for making time in the middle of such a frenzied period of the year. So I went looking for the organization that had the most efficacy in rural America about 16 plus years ago. And I was starting to be approached by all these different major global organizations. And even SAVE is obviously known for its global work. We're number 2 in the world to UNICEF for kids, and we go where no one else wants to go. In the US, that's rural. Nobody really wants to try to tackle rural. And so I hunted them down. I met with Mark Schreiber, who ran the US programs for a really long time, with Betsy. Betsy right there is his lieutenant. And I said, can I join you? And the reason that I did was my mom grew up really poor in Oklahoma, like really poor. My dad grew up poor in Texas, and they somehow both found their way to college. And that changed the trajectory, as we all know, of my family's life forever. And so we were transferred to West Virginia when I was 3, and my little school, Oakwood Elementary, which is no longer there, was a mixture of Carbide kids whose parents had masters and PhDs and who were read to at night and, played with and sung to, and kids from a local holler. Now, those were my favorite kids. They were funny. They, they might not have had their hair washed every day. They might, they might not have had clean overalls or whatever, but they just were they were awesome. I saw how smart and bright and brilliant they were, but it did not seem fair to me. It did not make sense to me when at the end of first grade, all the kids of the Carbiders and the families who supported them moved up to second grade, and those kids stayed behind. And over those next couple of years, as they tracked behind us, their demeanor on the playground changed. They became, it was less fun, less of that open childhood wonder, and more frustrated and embarrassed. And soon enough, I don't know what happened to those kids. And it just always rankled me. So this led me to Save the Children, because what can you do besides educate each and every child, give them everything that they need to get a fresh, fair start in life? I think part of the problem is the rest of the country sees us. They see, they see a mom in West Virginia who's in a trailer, who has maybe a car parked on blocks in front of her house, who has tattoos, and they judge us. They don't see the bright, shiny kids that we all know to see behind those eyes, and so it's a challenge. It's a challenge to get people to pay attention. But I will just tell you a short story about, I hope it's short, about a trip I took back to West Virginia. This one is ingrained in my mind because I took Nick Kristof from the New York Times, the columnist, back with me. And we met a woman named Truffles. She lived in a trailer. She was a single mom. Her son's name was Johnny, and is Johnny. And Truffles was trying to pay bills. She had frozen pipes, which meant, ice coming out of the trailer. And of course, it's on a hill. So she had to navigate the broken stairs coming down, and they were iced over because the broken pipe had spilled water and that had frozen in place. And what she was not really aware of was that Johnny wasn't acquiring language, and he really was almost nonverbal at 18 months. He was nonverbal. And this is a time when she was introduced to Tanya Bonecutter from Save the Children. Tanya was one of our home visitors. Our home visitors are local people. They are often moms in the community, people in the community. Somebody that I met in West Virginia, their home visitor had been their cheerleading coach. So they have a connection. It's not like we're bringing the nanny in from the outside, the super nanny who is like, you must do this, you must do that. It's your neighbor. And they really do kind of become that community that we all need as a young mom, and that so often is broken down by drug abuse, by poverty, by the stressors that all these people are going through all across the country. It's not unique to our state. But Johnny was not acquiring language, and because of all of her training and because of the strict protocols that our home visitors go through, Tanya picked up on this. And, yes, actually, Johnny had a lot of ear infections, and the doctor, the Medicaid doctor, had not done a lot of, had not really gone down the rabbit hole to figure out why. Well, because of Tanya, you just need like that big sister person to come by and say, hang on a second, there is something that can be done here. Let me help you out. Let me find a doctor. She took Johnny from Point Pleasant into Herb. She found a physician in Huntington who would see Johnny, and sure enough, he needed tubes. And with that small operation, his hearing was restored, and then Save the Children could really get to work. And these home visiting little nuggets, little gems, bringing books to the home, changing the books out every week, bringing developmentally appropriate toys, teaching Truffles how to talk to Johnny, how to sing to him, play with him, sit down, take a minute, read to him, and then keeping track of that so that Truffles could see her accomplishment as a mom, what she was doing with her son and how it was helping him. Anyway, we got to watch Johnny on his first day of preschool, and he was able to go in, matriculate into the classroom, starting to understand, starting to make his way verbally. And it was just like, this is a child who has a chance, and he has a chance because of SAVE. And I'll we'll continue on, but this is just the home visiting part of what we do. And it's person by person, it's starfish by starfish. It is incredibly beautiful, connective and connected work. And I will pass it off to, hi, Catherine. Catherine is our state director. I've known her since SAVE entered the state in 2010. I'm so happy to hear you talk, and I will mute myself so that I can't anymore.
Thanks, Jen. I appreciate that. And I want to say thank you to everyone for joining as well. My heart is full seeing so many West Virginians on the call today. I am born and raised West Virginian. I grew up in Fayetteville. I heard some mention of this, and Betsy's father grew up there as well. I now live in Huntington, so close to you Hurricane folks. If you just saw, Marshall Gone, new football coach, who's also a West Virginian. So we're happy about that too. But I'm so incredibly proud and joyful to be here with you guys today. As Jen said, I began my career with Save the Children when Save the Children was coming into West Virginia in 2010. So I've been working with the organization for 14 years now. And I'm still so incredibly proud and thankful every day to continue to be a part of this. And I was with Jen as she's talking about truffles. I've met this family and Johnny. I knew them well. And Tanya Bonecutter is a member of our team still today. I had dinner with her last night. So we are a small and mighty team here in West Virginia, but continuing this movement forward. And so I want to tell a little bit about my growing up and being a West Virginian. So growing up in Fayetteville, my dad was a telephone lineman. He worked for Bell Atlantic and then Verizon, and my mom was an educator for 30 years. I actually, in middle school, had my mom twice because in Fayetteville it was a very small community. So every teacher taught one grade, so I didn't have a choice but to have my mom in the classroom. But so, like Jen and like you guys, I know I saw poverty every day, and I knew that there were so many children that were not as fortunate as I was. I didn't have the understanding when I was younger as to why that was the case. I just knew that there were differences. And from a very young age, I knew that that wasn't okay. And I always sought out that I wanted to do something in some way to help children. My initial path was through therapy. So in school, I got 2 degrees, one in speech pathology and one in early childhood education. When I got out of college and started working with children and families here in the state, that's when the light went off for me. And I started to make those aha connections and saying, I get it now. I'm seeing children who have extreme disparities and have a lot of obstacles ahead of them. And as I began meeting with their caregivers and their parents and their grandparents that were caring for them as well, and I started doing home visits as an educator and seeing firsthand what our families were facing, then I knew that I had to do more. I was very happy being an educator, but I knew that there was potential for me to have a larger scale impact. And fortunately at that time, news had broke that Save the Children was coming to West Virginia. I quickly jumped on board, went through 4 strenuous interviews, and thankfully got the job. And I'm still here today and trudging forward in our work. And so I also want to say, as a West Virginian, I'm sure you guys can relate that we develop really strong relationships here in the state. And I will say that everything Save the Children does is relationship based. All of our work is through partnerships and relationships with families, with school districts, with other agencies and partners throughout the state. That's how we move forward. And so through those relationships, the past couple of years, we have been able to reach children in all 55 counties in West Virginia. And this past year, we reached over 58,000 children in the state. So that is huge. When we first opened programs in 2010, we were reaching 3,000 kids. So we have drastically grown these past 14 years to reach a large number of kids. And I want to continue doing that. I know all of us here today want to ensure that we are going to continue reaching the largest number of kids we can. So through our programs, we know that our kids are entering kindergarten on day one, ready to learn. And we know that our kids that are going through our grade level programming through literacy and math are showing huge gains and improvements. We are targeting those children that I refer to them as the bubble kids, those kids that are not receiving, say, Title I services. They're not the lowest of the low, but they are falling through the cracks. They are the kids that our school districts are not equipped with the staff and capacity to provide additional intervention to. And that's where we come in. We are providing that support and intervention. And last year, we saw 77% of kids in our literacy programs and 76% of kids in our math programs move towards grade level proficiency. And that is huge. So we know that the work we are doing is impactful and is moving our kids forward. And I also want to highlight quickly before we move on that I think it's important to also note that we hire locally. So every employee within our programs is a West Virginian, but is from the local community that they live in. So we're building an economic workforce. We are providing training and support to build the capacity of the individuals that are then working within the school districts and supporting those children. But it's critically important for that local face to be the face of our programs. I'm an outsider to these small communities where we're working. So it's not beneficial for someone like me to come in, but for a face and a trusted face from the local community to go into the homes and provide support, those families are going to trust them. They're going to let them into the homes too, right? And they're going to listen to them and say, yes, absolutely. I trust you. I'm going to follow your lead. You're my cheerleader. Let's do this together. And so right now, we are employing a little over 160 West Virginians across the state through our programs, which I'm incredibly proud of. So when we started in 2010, I think we were at probably 25. So we have grown drastically with our footprint across the state. And I'll toss it over, I think, back to you, Jen.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, it's incredible to hear the growth. And I love that you saw Miss Bonecutter last night. Please, please give her my absolute best. Say hi to everyone. Say hi to everyone. Okay, so I just want to take a moment to introduce you to Betsy Zorio, the Vice President of U.S. Programs for Save the Children. She is a day one for me. We have worked together for over 16 years. She oversees everything that happens in West Virginia, along with initiatives in 14 other states, 300 rural communities, ensuring that all children, particularly the 2.9 million who live in rural poverty, have a healthy, strong foundation to thrive as learners and in life. I will just get right to you. Betsy, can you please share more about the fundraising climate in West Virginia and the funding gap that has us all here today?
Sure, yes, and thank you all for being here today, especially on a Friday right before the holidays. I know it's a really busy time of year. So excited to have Jen and Judy Ann and Sarah and others gathering us to talk about something that's also near and dear to my heart. My dad, as I mentioned, grew up in Fayetteville, West Virginia. His dad was actually the principal at Summerlee Elementary School. His mom was a teacher as well. And like many of you, had a strong focus on education throughout his life, an opportunity to attend college and an opportunity to thrive and to have a successful career and a family. And that's not an opportunity that's available to every child in this country. And that's what Save the Children is about. We're about leveling the playing field and making sure every child has an opportunity to reach their full potential. And so we are at this situation now where we're facing a funding shortfall in West Virginia. As we all know, we're in a very tough political reality. Things in our country have unfortunately become more polarized. Typically, we're able to work through that. Typically, children are the one issue we can agree on that we as a country should be investing in kids, and particularly investing in their education. We have worked our darndest to build and maintain strong relationships with legislators and other policymakers, including in the governor's office, and typically can rely on funding from the state to support our programs. Public-private partnerships are at the core of everything we do. So we typically have strong support from the state to match with federal support and match with private philanthropy to sustain our programs. Unfortunately, this year, we were not successful in receiving funding from the state. So that's left us with $1 million shortfall, and that's why we're all here today. Thanks to Jen, Judy Ann, Sarah, and others, we've already more than halfway closed that gap of $1 million, but we're still a few $100,000 shy, and hoping you all can help us close that gap and ensure that we start 2025 in the strongest place possible. $1 million is not insignificant, and I just want to note that we are optimistic, especially with the new governor coming in office, as some changes in the legislature. We think there is an opportunity for us to maybe rebuild relationships and get back to a point where we've got steady support from the state. As Catherine mentioned, we consistently deliver results, making sure that kids who are falling through the cracks have the support they need. We're working just in such close partnership with the schools to fill those gaps, to ensure they have additional support for kids who may be struggling with reading and math, as well as to ensure that families with small kids at home have the support they need to ensure their kids enter kindergarten ready to learn. And so we believe we're a key partner to the state and its educational goals, and looking forward to building relationships with the new governor, as well as incoming legislators, and pressing for additional support for West Virginia kids. So I say that because this is an unusual situation in which we find ourselves. We have ambitions to grow. Catherine could tell you all about her plans to expand across the state, but we need some help to get us over this hump, and hoping you all will step up.
Thank you so much, Betsy. I know we're running a little behind time. Nobody has ever accused a West Virginian of being short on words. So, Catherine, could you please address the impact of the challenge and just tell us about the opportunities you see for kids and families in West Virginia?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we know, West Virginians and poverty a lot of times go hand in hand, right? And generational poverty. And so breaking that cycle of poverty can almost seem impossible for some families. We know employment opportunities are scarce. We know higher education attainment seems unreachable for most. And the battle against substance abuse and the opioid crisis is seemingly insurmountable, as West Virginia leads the nation in overdose rates. None of this is new news to you guys. We also know that families spend so much time in isolation because of the geography of our landscape, the lack of community resources, the lack of reliable transportation. Even getting basic necessities such as food is an extreme challenge for families. Most families are traveling 30 to 45 minutes to their nearest grocery store. One county in West Virginia, Clay County, doesn't even have a grocery store in the entire county. So when you're thinking about children's needs and how we can address them, there's so many things stacked up against them, and education shouldn't be one of those that is also stacked against them. The rate of children in poverty, West Virginia, is at 27%. The national average is 11%. In some of our counties we're working in, it's as high as 35%. We know that 86% of our third graders are not proficient in reading, and 80% of fifth graders are not proficient in math. Those are staggering statistics for our kids. And we also know that, partly due to the opioid crisis, that nearly 50% of kids in West Virginia are being raised by their grandparents or another caring family member. So that's why we're here, right? Philanthropy can really play a major role in closing this gap for an inequality gap for our kids. And so we know that those numbers they really show the great opportunity we have. That's what I'll say, of how we can come together. So we can bridge the gap and sustain our grade level proficiency programming and maintain the support that we're providing our in-school and after-school program partners with our evidence-based, results-proven literacy and math programming that's really moving those kids across the finish line and making them closer and surpassing grade level proficiency. By doing that, we know that we're going to graduate kids that are ready for the workforce and become more stable West Virginians. Moving out of the state shouldn't be their only option. We need to keep them here, build them up, build our communities up. And so by doing that, that's our job, making sure that we are building well-educated children and adults here in West Virginia. And we can also close the gap within our early childhood home visiting programs. There are not enough home visiting supports for our children and families here in the state. We have childcare deserts for our kids. We have families that want to work, but they can't take their kids anywhere. We need to be able to be that savior and provide them the early childhood support that they need so that when they're transitioning to kindergarten, they're not 18 months behind their more affluent peers. They are on grade level as well. They're coming to school with the skills they need to be successful. And they're coming in knowing that the parents are knowing that the relationship that they had with their school doesn't have to be the relationship that their kids have. They're coming in with a renewed sense of hope and belonging and sense of pride that their kids are going to have a really bright trajectory in life. So Jen shared a story earlier about a family that she'd met, and I want to share one that keeps me empowered every day in doing what I do. So this family lives in McDowell County, West Virginia. If you've never visited McDowell County, it's at the very bottom of our state. It, as you probably know, leads the nation in every bad statistic there is. They are leading the nation in poverty and overdose, in low economic and educational attainment. But as I mentioned earlier too, everything we do is relationship based. And this family is proof of relationships and how strong relationships move them forward. We had been informed by a community partner that a great-grandmother had taken in her great-grandchildren. They were 1 and 3 at the time. And Ruth, who's the great-grandmother, she was 72. So as you can imagine, taking in a 1 and 3-year-old at 72 is probably quite difficult. To make things worse, Ruth had only gone through the 2nd grade herself. When she was in 2nd grade, she had to quit school to stay home, help her family work their land, and take care of their siblings. At the young, ripe age of probably, 9 in 2nd grade. So Ruth was illiterate. She lived in a shack with a tin roof. I will never forget this home. I know we've all seen a lot of homes, but this is the one home that I can't get out of my mind. It drives me forward every day. So when the home visitor connected with this family, Ruth, of course, was very scared that she was coming to take the great-grandkids away from her. She wouldn't let her into the home, but they would meet on the porch. This went on for about 4 months before Ruth finally said, okay, I trust you, you can come in the home. At that time, the home visitor was sharing books with Ruth, and she was just as excited as the kids were. She was sitting on the edge of the seat, watching the home visitor read the book and teaching her how to tell stories through the pictures. She learned to read by reading kids' books and then transferred those skills over to these kids. She was a sponge, the kids were a sponge, and Ruth was determined that these great-grandkids were going to be okay. And so was the home visitor. They developed such a relationship. The home visitor took her a birthday cake on Ruth's 75th birthday. It was the first time Ruth had ever had a birthday cake, and they celebrated together. The love and connection that these families and home visitors make is just, it's what drives me forward. I know it's what drives Jen forward, and I know what drives Betsy, all of us here at Save the Children. This is the work that is happening on the ground and what you often don't see. I will never forget this family. It took me a year to be able to get in there because I was an outsider. She wasn't going to let me come and even be on the porch. But eventually, through relationship, I was able to meet this family too. I will never forget them. And I'm very happy to report that those kids did enter kindergarten. They are thriving now. They are too old for home visiting programs, but we still keep tabs on these kids. This great grandmother is still in contact with the early childhood home visitor and proudly shares updates of their growth. And we know that these kids are not going to have the same outcomes as some of their peers, their parents, and their actual grandparents. So it's stories like that that really drive it forward.
It's so powerful, and it's one of a million stories. Maybe not that dramatically incredible, but there are a lot. I mean, they're all pretty incredible. Thank you so much, Catherine. I was writing everything you said down because I'm going to steal it all. And for the next time I am talking, you're so eloquent when you speak about the state and the possibilities there. So you guys can see why all of us at Save the Children are just hell-bent on keeping these programs going, on not letting them disappear, on not just saying to these people who have given their lives and who are accepting paychecks from Save, hey, guess what? We're just done here. You know, good luck. We can't just cut these the programs or even one family out of what we do. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, ideas, we could talk forever, but we'd love to hear any thoughts that you have.
Well, I actually just have a question. I was in tears hearing those stories. I'm from Mingo County, and so it's, very similar to McDowell. So it's actually a question for Catherine, I guess. Are you doing work in like Mingo County, Logan County?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier, through our partnerships, we've reached kids across the entire state. So we've reached kids across all 55 counties here in the state. Our early childhood and school age programs are located throughout 6 counties here in West Virginia in partnership with 17 schools. So those counties are Calhoun, Clay, Nicholas, Fayette, Gilmer, and McDowell. So while we don't have our home visiting and school age programs in Mingo, we've done other work. So we have partners that are distributing educational resources and materials. We provide books and other supports to schools and delivering them into homes. So we find lots of different methods to still provide support into families. Now, as Betsy mentioned earlier, I do have a really robust list of wish and expansion opportunities. Mingo County is on my list because, as you said, and as you know, the outcomes for children in Mingo County are very desperate at this point.
Well, thank you for all the really wonderful work you're doing in the state. So thank you.
Catherine, it's Beth. I just had a quick question for everyone. I grew up in Charleston like Jen, and I went to George Washington like Jen. Had the opportunity to come back with Catherine and Morgan this October and actually see the work that you guys were doing. I was personally blown away by the after school programming and some of the other programming that we saw. But I'm just curious, it sounds like this is a one-time budget issue. Were there a lot of budget cuts that Save the Children got caught within. Do we expect this to be a one-time situation from a political standpoint, or I'd love just a little bit more color on that. And then just with respect to the programs that we saw, are there priorities in those funding gaps? And is there specific deadlines that we have to meet those funding objectives by so that staff stays in place, et cetera?
So, so we do expect this to be a one-time issue. We have a long history when Jen and Mark Shriver, who I think is also on the line. Yeah, I see Mark there. Went to then Governor Manchin years ago. He gave funding for us to start programs in West Virginia, recognizing how important Save the Children was to reaching his goals for the state and for kids. And so we have a history of receiving funding. It's gone up and down depending upon the state's economic situation. That's the reality we face in every state where we work. But this year was a surprise and you know, an unfortunate challenge that we had with the governor's office and receiving our funding. And so we do expect this to be a one-time situation. That said, you know, we are really eager to grow our base of support for West Virginia so that we can reach more kids. We do have a long list of partners who are eager for us to bring our programs to their counties. And we have a lot of innovative work that's happening in West Virginia. We've have a wonderful partnership through Mountaineer Food Bank that's finding new ways to get food into the homes of kids who are farthest from services, actually using DoorDash drivers as so kind of creating jobs through that as well as using bus drivers and their off hours, so they're earning a little extra income delivering food. And so we've got so much opportunity in West Virginia. We are confident that we'll get back into the state's budget and remain there going forward, but we also want to find ways to grow our funding so that we can expand to all the counties where we need the work and continue to drive that innovation or support the innovation that we're seeing. Catherine, anything you'd add?
No, I think that hits it. You know, and Beth, it's so good to see you again as well. Yeah, I think, you know, when Betsy says we've got a long list of partners, I receive calls and emails very frequently from partners saying, how can we get Save the Children into our district? We are struggling. We need support. What else can you do? So we've been partnering on a smaller scale throughout all 55 counties, but there are long wish lists for partners. Every county is struggling meeting the needs of kids and children, whether it's 0 to 5 and not having staff to do home visits with families. They're struggling with kids being on grade level and not having the capacity or the technical skills to support those kids. And those are the benefits adds that we bring into communities, bringing those supports. So being able to grow and expand our footprint is definitely on my very short list of wishes.
Can I build on that? I don't know if you spoke to her question about the deadline. I'm Jen
Yeah.
Giovanetti with the Benham Foundation, and you know, this is great. The timing, though, we just had our board meeting like 2 weeks ago and approved a grant for Save the Children, but I don't think we knew about this gap that you're explaining now, which probably could have been worked into that grant. So with this deadline piece, your organization you're linked to so many of our other grantees like Mountaineer Food Bank and so many others, Catherine, as you know. So what is your window of really needing to raise these additional funds so that this year isn't disrupted? I know we are specifically this year targeted at the kindergarten readiness initiatives, but you know, in our grant making history with you, we've been in other places too. So that deadline piece would be really helpful because we don't have another board meeting until March, just as a logistical issue for this.
Absolutely. And I can speak to that. And Betsy, if you want to add anything on, and thank you so much also for your support. Huge fans of the Benham Foundation and the support that we're receiving. So we cannot get back into the state's budget until it would take effect June of 2025. That's when the new year's funding to run through or July 1 is when it starts of 2025 through June of 2026. So to finish out this school year and to start the summer and next school year strong is really our biggest gap. And then crossing fingers that during this legislative session, new governor, incoming governor, and new legislative champions in the House get behind us and help push us through.
We have already had really, Mark, we've already had really encouraging conversations with the new governor, and we have a lot of friends and fans at the Capitol. So as much as this year has been a blow, and has been just surprising and kind of heartbreaking, I feel confident and in our future.
And Jen, you met with the incoming governor in May when you were home advocating
Yeah.
for funding. And so we feel good about it and are keen to really get back to a place of stability and a place where we can actually start to grow that funding. And so, the sooner the better, as always, in this situation. We are trying to cobble together funds where we can to meet the rest of that, to fill that gap. But that sometimes means taking funds from another state, which we are, sort of loath to do. And that's why we all came to you today to see what we could raise. We are committed to keeping our programs alive, kind of whatever it takes. We'll cut from someplace else if we need to, not another state necessarily, but we'll try to find the change in the couch cushion somewhere to keep it alive, because it's so counterproductive for us to close programs and then hopefully in several more months have the funding from the state, and we don't have to to go back and to reopen them. It's too much upheaval, and it's time lost for those kids who need us. So we're coming to you in hopes that I'm sorry we've missed the deadline, and I'm sorry we didn't get this this challenge in front of you sooner, but anything you can do to help us now helps us to keep our presence intact and keep us strong and going into the next budget cycle.
So I have a quick question, if I could go next. So John Kinzer, I grew up in Huntington, West Virginia, with Mr. Bolin over there. This is really timely. My wife and I were just about to make a bigger donation to some kids in Africa, and it's always like you think about like you want to help people in home before you do something broader. So I'm glad this came up. I guess my question, well, one more thing I'd say is the McDowell County angle. I actually was fortunate to take a group of kids from the Yeager Scholars Program from Marshall down to McDowell County, and we took them on the Hatfield-McCoy's trails, and then they went and saw some of the great work that Coalfield Development is doing, reclaiming mining sites. So I wonder if there's more we can do with Marshall and West Virginia and other universities, not only from the kids trying to think about social enterprise, as well as kids that could be teachers or go into schools that are interested to go back to their county. So I don't know if that's going on. So that's the first thing I'd say. Then my second question is, that's just really a thought, but then my question is, what's the follow-up? Like, as we think about philanthropy, we obviously have lots of different things we're thinking about. It'd be helpful to have a one-off conversation to understand what levels are, what, different amounts could make what bit, different differences. Cause I'm literally having the same conversation with somebody that has this program for kids in Africa, and it's hard to make trade-offs, but we all have precious dollars. And so would love to know who I could have that follow-up conversation with. And finally, thank you all for doing this. This is amazing. And I'm glad that Sarah brought me into this.
Thank you, John. And I know this is the time of year when we're all thinking about giving priorities, and there's a lot of need all around the world, and a lot of crises the world is facing. So we know this is not unique, but thought that you as West Virginians would be particularly concerned about this. We'd be happy to have a follow-up conversation and talk with you about different levels of support. We've got a few of our fundraising colleagues on the line, and so we'd be happy to reach out and share with you kind of the costs of our programs and specific gaps and all of that. So we'll follow up with you and get you some more details.
Thank you.
We'll also accept any names of any of your buddies. I mean, Sarah really just she really opened up her little address book for us, and we would love to talk to any of your buddies if you have any friends that you grew up with that whom we should reach out to. All right, I think this is the end of our hour. I just want to, again, just thank you for the time and opportunity to just talk about our state and about the incredible kids there. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to Catherine always for living this life, and Betsy and all of our Save the Children people. And come on over. There are kids who need help everywhere, but there is nothing like helping kids in your own home state. I'm increasing my gift today because of this conversation, and I look forward to more good news. So have a wonderful, blessed holiday season. All of you, please be safe. I'm wishing you a ton of joy. And is there anything else? Should we just say, see y'all?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Appreciate
you. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.